Hello on YouTube. Hello everyone. Facebook Live, YouTube.com, Kevin Olenick, Spreaker.com, Kevole, SoundCloud.com, Kevole. And we're continuing our process of trying these live video type agree or disagrees. So thank you for joining. And there has been a lot of controversy in my former home city of Calgary, Alberta, and it's something that I think goes around all across, although I live in a fine, beautiful city of art and creativity in Vancouver, sitting here in the Vancouver Public Library as we are chatting. And the controversy was around a new sculpture in Calgary that has been built outside of the city on as you're heading Highway 1 north, I believe. Someone in Calgary can correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not been there to actually see this. But the cost of this structure was $500,000 to taxpayers, which some have felt that is quite expensive. And when the controversy around this art facility started, there were a lot of people that were calling the artist a number of different names, none of them pleasant, and it would be including some death threats, which the artist said he's never received before, and things like that. The artist was considered a scam artist. Some were joking, if I could make $500,000 doing that, sign me up. And there was a lot of really just poor words and very angry words joined towards this particular artist. And it led to the mayor of Calgary, Nenshi, stepping in, saying he didn't necessarily like it, but there was a lot of offense on a number of different sides. But the big thing is that a lot of people felt that artists were scammers, and included one of the candidates for the United Conservative Party leadership race, Brian Jean. I'm not trying to pick on Brian Jean. He just said this. He basically said that until the economy goes up, we don't need any art. And it felt to me that in a bigger global space, not only in Calgary, which I think is there's been I personally have felt that my former city of Calgary, no offense for those that are watching right now that live in Calgary, I think that there's a very disrespectful tone towards artists, and I think that needs to change, which leads to this question, because as we go through go through life, and people are making decisions about what to do in their career. Some people have the dream of being an artist. And when I say artist, I think of things like actor, podcaster, sculptor, painter, drawer, all kinds of different things that you can do in the arts, dancing, ballet, all of those things. And for a number of different reasons, most of them probably financial, but even some in terms of reputation, the idea of being an artist in some people's mind is considered either A, a lowly profession, B, not a financial viable way to live your life, and C, not feasible really to do. And just a dream that some people chase and will never get there, because only a certain percentage of artists actually make it. Not all artists make it. Whatever the term make it means to you, that's what is felt. And earlier this week, a couple of things happened that inspired me to come back to this conversation. Part of it is because Part of this is because I felt like the temperature of the Bowfort sculpture, which now is actually on Twitter. You can actually follow the Bowfort Tower on Twitter. Go ahead and follow that. And there was a conversation back home. I didn't see, wasn't a part of it, obviously. I'm living here in Vancouver, but I think it was done by Fire Exit Theater, which is led by Val Leske, who I think you do need to hear her story. She has worked for years as a banker, gave up the banking job, the table career, to put up a very viable, successful theater in Calgary. And I think should be commended for that. And I believe that she was part of the conversation around the arts situation. One moment, someone is going with something there. It's like the airport. Hang on. Anyway, so I think she has a lot to say on this topic, and she wrote a letter to Councillor Sean Chu about how he has disrespected the arts, and a lot of politicians have really disrespected the arts as well. And I think, from what I understand, the conversation, from what I'm reading on Twitter, the frustration was that there needs to be more women in this conversation, as there was only one woman on the panel. Mayor Nenshi was on the panel. And so I found that interesting. And if you were there, I'd love to hear what your thoughts were on that. The other side to that, though, is on a global scale. Where are we with art? The funny thing is with some of the stories and the things that are happening within this year, really, with the election of Donald Trump, the Charlottesville incident, the rallies that were done here in Vancouver, the flooding in Houston, the flooding 4 years ago in Calgary, all of these things. I think that there's actually this is the time that we need the voice of the artist, because throughout history, throughout economy, I think it's very much needed. The idea of the arts are needed to speak to us in ways that we cannot speak, others can't speak. Authors writing books telling us stories about times of when we live, times in history, writing a different perspective for us thinking about that. See here, because I'm kind of watching who's joining. Randall Weeb is one that was involved with the Passion Play, telling that story in a very different, mobile way. I was involved with the Passion Play a few years as well. So telling stories in different ways is one of those things that I think is very needed. Whether you're professional or not, the idea of growing into that position of professionalism, and I saw that there was a comment for those on YouTube, not all artists are professional artists. Professional artists work full-time all year and make a living from their art through representation in several galleries around the world. But you have to get to that level to be considered professional, and it takes a lot of work, effort, time, education, and money to get to that point. It's not something that you snap fingers right there. Even if you're as good looking as I am, or you have the face for radio as I am, I kid about that. But it's a lot of work, and it's hard work, even as I've been pursuing this broadcasting career out in Vancouver, which I do think is also one art. There's a lot of challenges to that I think people forget. And so that's why I wanted to bring the conversation about art back to the forefront, and whether or not you feel that they're underappreciated, undervalued, and disrespected. And actually, the way that this was worded is funny, because I was at a friend's house this weekend, and I met a new friend, and he's a musician, and he mentioned this, and he's living here in Vancouver. He has a band, trying to get things going, and he's lived in Vancouver here for a long time, and that's exactly what's his words. He said, artists are underappreciated, undervalued, and disrespected. So that is the conversation that we're going to have tonight. We'll have a poll on Twitter, so if you follow me on Twitter at Kevole, join the poll, comment on Facebook, we'll be commenting on YouTube, Spreaker.com, Kevole, and yes, I agree with you, Yolanda. Art expresses the imagination and the soul of humankind. I agree. I agree with that. So hopefully all comment, talk about that. Even if you don't talk about this here, talk about this amongst your friends, because I do think that this is an important conversation. And thank you very much for listening, watching, and we will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.